Welcome back to Centennial Roots Homestead. I'm Kristin, and today we're going to show you how to use my favorite tool, probably in the homestead kitchen, and that is the steam juicer. You can certainly do a lot of your fruits and things without it, but it's just a game changer. I've enjoyed so much more doing things like elderberries, blackberries, things that are very hard to de-seed. It just makes it so simple with this. So today we have plums that we picked off the homestead back in August, and I just bagged them up, threw them in the freezer. And since they're so small this year, instead of trying to peel them or pit them or anything like that, we're just going to stick them in the steam juicer and allow to get the plum juice out, and then proceed on to make plum jelly. So if you've not seen one of these before, it's a 3-part. The top part has the holes in it, and this is where your fruit will go. The middle part is where the juice, as it steams, will collect. And as it collects in there, then you can use this to siphon off into whatever pot you want to use. And then the bottom chamber is for filling with water. And this is what boils on your stove and allows the steam to come up and get all the good juice out of the fruit that you're using. Like I said, I've done blueberries, I've done blackberries, elderberries, apples, but this will be the first time for plums, so I'm excited to see how it turns out. All right, so I filled the bottom canister to the fill line with water. And then we will add the second tier, which is where the juice will collect. And then the top tier with the holes. And then we'll fill it up with our fruit. So this is our partially frozen plums. Should be able to get almost the 2-gallon bags in. All right, so a little over 2-gallon bags. We'll get this going. So I've just started this out on kind of a medium-high heat to get the water boiling, and you just want it to be at a constant simmer. You'll want to keep an eye on this depending on how much fruit you have in, because you don't want to run out of water. So if you check it and you're getting low, go ahead and fill it back up if your fruit has not totally gotten all the juice out yet. So as this steams, the fruit will obviously lose the juice, and so it'll decrease the amount in here. And I just look for the fruit to be pretty well dehydrated out before I stop the juicing process. All right, so while we have our plums in the steam juicer, we have to have a good way to try that jelly when it is finished. So I'm going to go ahead and whip up some English muffin bread. It's a very quick come together, doesn't take much time, and it's delicious. It's very good of a morning, sliced, thrown in the toaster with some jelly on it. It's good to grill and make a sandwich with. I do a lot of sourdough. This recipe can be changed into a sourdough recipe, and we will link that down below. But sometimes you don't have time for that fermentation process, or it's real life, and sometimes you just need to throw something together. It's much better than going to the store and getting a loaf of bread, because I still know what's in this bread. And so we bounce back and forth between sourdough. I use sourdough in probably 2 to 3 recipes a week, in chocolate chip cookies, in noodles, in pizza crust. And I've got that over there ready to go all the time. but I wanted to show you an alternative in case you want to do something a little different. So the first thing we'll do in our bowl is add 5 cups of flour. This recipe is going to make 2 loaves. This also does freeze very well. And so if you're a smaller family and you can't eat 2 loaves really quickly, then you can just throw one in the freezer and get it out later. So there's 3. It looks like a lot of flour. All right, so 5 cups of flour. And to that we're gonna add 4.5 teaspoons of yeast. There's 1, 2, 3, 4.5. All right, a tablespoon of sugar. And you can substitute honey or whatever you would want in this in place of sugar if you want. A teaspoon of salt. And if you haven't heard me mention it before, I'm using the Redmond real salt. It just is a game changer when it comes to baking or even just topping it on your food when you're at the dinner table. All right, and I've already warmed up. I've got 2 cups of milk here. I just use the whole raw milk that we get from our milk cows. And I just heat it just so it's warm. You wanna be able to activate that yeast. We're gonna dump that in here, along with a 1/2 cup of warm water. And that's all there is. We'll get this mixed up. I'm going to use some of the lard that we actually rendered the other day. I love to use that when I'm greasing my pans. So we'll just get the loaf pans greased up here. Now the thing that kind of helps make this an English muffin bread is that we're going to add cornmeal. In the pan as well as on top of the bread once we put it in there. So just a good light grease, and that'll help it come out of your pans. I like to grind my own cornmeal. That Nutri-Mill grain mill is awesome. And so when I run out of cornmeal, I just run in there and grind some more myself. You just want to sprinkle this around in the bottom and get kind of a layer like that. All right. All right, so I'm going to use my dough whisk. I really like this thing. It comes in handy. So all we have in here is flour, sugar, salt, yeast, milk, and water. This is probably the most hands-off bread recipe that you will ever make. I'm just going to get it stirred up so that it's all well incorporated. It's a little bit of a wet dough. So don't be surprised by that. All right, so once we've got it good and mixed up, then I like to go ahead and just put it in my pans. And then we'll cover it and let it raise until it's about doubled in size. And that will depend on, obviously, the temperature of your kitchen, the temperature of the outdoors. All right, so that's about the consistency that you're gonna want right there. But I'm just gonna go ahead and divide it into 2 loaf pans. bit out of this one. Might be easier with a spoon. Kind of just spread it out just a little bit there. We're going to cover it and let it raise until it's doubled. And then we'll get it in the oven. We're going to bake it at 375 for 35 to 40 minutes. Right before we bake it though, we will sprinkle a little bit of that cornmeal on top. So we'll be back in just a bit. All right, so our bread has risen. It was over on the wood stove for a little bit. I'm gonna sprinkle it just with some cornmeal. And then we're gonna get it in an oven that is at 375 degrees for 35 to 40 minutes. And then it will be ready for us to try with some plum jelly when we get it finished. Plums are starting to cook down really good. If you can see in here, starting to change color and not near as high up on that pan as they were. You can see that the juice is coming right along. About ready to drain some out so that it doesn't overflow. And our water line is doing quite well, about halfway down, so we're still good on water. Let that go a little bit longer. You can see the juice is starting to come here. That's an indicator that we're filling up good. I don't know how easy that is to see. And we'll get some drained out. All right, our plum juice is getting pretty full in here, so we're going to drain some out so it can continue. We can get a little warm. It smells good. Wow. That smells awesome. So already a half gallon of a deep, rich plum juice. This is going to make some awesome jelly. guys, we are ready for step 2 in our wild plum jelly recipe. We ended up getting about right at a gallon of plum juice, and so we'll be turning this into jelly today. In case you noticed the wardrobe change, it was because we had to stop our wild plum jelly making yesterday because of the winter storm coming in. I needed to go outside and get the animals all prepped and bedded down. So life on the homestead, we stopped the jelly. The one good thing about that is I can throw this type of stuff in my big walk-in cooler, aka my garage, when it is wintertime. And so I just stuck this all out in the garage, let it stay cool through the night, and brought it back to room temperature today, so we're ready to proceed on. I did want to show you a little extra that you can do. There's no sense in throwing your scraps out. And so what I did was I'm in the process of making some wild plum vinegar. This is very simple. Once you've got we use the juice steamer. Once you get your juice boiled off, then I took the scraps, put them in a half-gallon jar. I put 2 pounds of scraps per jar, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar with the mother, a cup of sugar, and then I just filled the rest with water. Now you can put a cheesecloth on top, or I've got these fermenting lids that work really well, and I can link those in the description. But what you do is just allow this to ferment, shake it periodically when you think about it, and let it ferment for 2 to 4 weeks. You'll kind of notice that as it starts to get kind of foamy and bubbly, that it's doing its thing. And so I've dated mine so that I know when I started them. And I'm gonna let these set in the pantry and then strain them off. Apple or wild plum vinegar is great for a lot of different things. The first and foremost being that you can use it as a replacement for your red wine vinegar in cooking. You can also make an equal part sugar and vinegar dressing. Mix it with oil, have a salad dressing, or just leave it as the sugar and vinegar and marinate meats in it. So it's really versatile, really good for a lot of things, so I thought we'd give this a try. So I'm gonna get this juice on the stove. We're gonna bring it to a gentle boil. Then we're gonna add equal amounts of the juice and the sugar and let that boil down. And then I'll show you how we test it to see if it is ready to go ahead and jar up to become jelly. There's a really cool trick that I learned, and so we'll do that. These will only have to be water bath canned, and so I'll take you through that process as well. All right, so I have my heavy bottomed pot here on the stove. I measured out exactly 8 cups. So I'm just gonna do the first half gallon this way to see how it goes. And I've got 8 cups of my plum juice over medium heat. We're going to add exactly 8 cups of sugar to this, which does seem to be a little bit low. If you're used to making jelly, usually the sugar to jelly ratio, you're gonna have twice as much sugar as juice. But I'm gonna do an equal part, 8 cups of juice to 8 cups of sugar. I am gonna add just a teaspoon or 2 of lemon juice just to help balance that plum, that sour taste. And then once we get this to a boil, we're gonna boil it for 20 minutes until all of the foam and stuff that accumulates on the top of juice when you boil it is completely gone. We will scrape that off as we go and watch it closely. And then I will show you how we see if it's ready to gel. So let's go ahead and add the 8 cups of sugar. There's 3. Made a lot of jams and jellies in my lifetime. There have been a few flops where my jelly doesn't set up, In that case, I just call it syrup, and we use it more as a syrup. Still tastes great, just doesn't have the gel. So you can make do with even the flops in the kitchen. Somehow they turn out okay. So I'm just gonna keep this over medium heat, stirring it to get that sugar incorporated, and then we'll get it up to a boil and start our timer for 20 minutes. All right, so you can see that we do have our plum juice and sugar mixture coming to a boil. This foam is what I'm talking about, being able to skim off as it comes to the surface, and it will eventually stop foaming, and you'll know that you're getting close to ready. So I'll just take time, stir periodically, skim off the foam, and we'll start our timer for 20 minutes. All right, so our 20 minutes is nearing completion. We don't have a lot of foam left. Most of that I skimmed off as we went. I've just kept it at a gentle boil. And I will be doing the test to see if we're ready to jar it up. All right, so the way to test and see if this is ready to go is to get a cold dish. I'd had this in the fridge for a little bit. And I'm gonna take just a little bit of the juice. I'm gonna place it here in the bowl, just like that. Give it just a minute. Now what we're gonna do, take a finger, run it through that. And you can see that it does not come back together quickly. So that means it's ready. All right, my jars are clean and warm, and we're gonna start getting this jelly jarred up. It's an absolutely beautiful color. I think wild plum jelly is one of my favorite jellies. Wild blackberry probably being the first. That stuff is delicious as well. You can go to a 1/2 inch head space on this. Once we get these full, we'll do the same as we do with all of our canning projects. We'll use a vinegar on our paper towel, wipe the rims, and get all that stickiness off so we ensure a good seal, as well as checking for any dings or dents that might be a problem and prevent sealing as well. I'm using 1/2 pint jars just because that suits our family right now. And it's also nice to give as gifts. Anything that I can throughout the year, I try to can a little extra of the fun stuff to give as a gift at Christmas time. People do tend to appreciate the homemade gifts, especially when they're this yummy. Like I said, we made that English muffin bread yesterday, and so along with the homemade butter, if you haven't seen that, I did that a few days ago, showing how it's very, very simple. And so homemade English muffin bread, some homemade butter, and some homemade wild plum jelly. Gosh, I could probably eat that 3 meals a day. It's amazing how much beautiful, rich color you can get. No artificial flavors or preservatives here. Just the way it came off the tree. And I tell you though, harvesting these, it was hot and buggy. It was not a fun time. But knowing that I could do this later and reap the benefit made it all worth it. We actually have multiple wild plum trees here at the homestead. So it's a lot of fun knowing where those are at. We can go back every year and harvest more. I don't know if you can hear it, but the wind is howling. The snow is actually going completely horizontal to the east. So it's nice to be in here by the wood stove and the fire and doing projects like this. So my water bath canner, the electric one, will hold these 9 half pints. Looks like there'll be a little bit left over. Such a shame because you might have to just eat that. I don't mind having leftovers at all. It'll probably just go in a jar in the fridge and be eaten over the weekend. No sense in running another round for just a few jars. The other option would be to go ahead and do that other half gallon of juice that I have. And go ahead and get it made up into jelly. So we'll see. All right, so we'll get these rings wiped down. Set these lids right on. I'll tighten those down just here a little bit more, but you don't want them on too tight so that the lids don't buckle. So remember, just finger tight. Alright, we'll get these in the water bath canner. Now remember, you're going to want 1 inch of water over the top of the tallest jar. So we'll put that in and get it for 10 minutes in a water bath. Alright guys, so sometimes you have a little bit of video malfunction, but we did complete our canning project this week with our plum jelly, and it was water bath canned for 10 minutes. And everything looks great with it. And we've got our vinegar set up here brewing. So thank you all for joining us for CANUARY. Be sure to like us, subscribe to our channel, and look at all the others that we are in collaboration with for CANUARY. We'll see you guys next time.